If you're striving to become the best version of yourself while learning from the experiences of other successful people, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Transformation Chamber. Welcome back to episode 5 of the Transformation Chamber. I'm super excited today. I brought in the big guns. Help me welcome to the show, Dr. Seun. Dr. Seun, what's up, man?
What's going on, boss man?
Yo, I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Let me give y'all a little bit about Dr. Seun. It's a lot, but I'll give you as much as I can. A quick snapshot. She is a 2-time Olympian for track and bobsled. Yes, you heard it, bobsled. The first and only Olympian from the continent of Africa to participate in both Summer and Winter Olympics.
Correct.
And then, as if that wasn't enough, she's also a doctor of chiropractic and a biomechanist.
That's correct.
Whew, okay. And that's just a small like sample size of her her resume. You should check it out. So, Dr. Seun, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You know what? Let's just let's jump right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you ended up here in Houston and how that whole thing played out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a first generation Nigerian, born and raised in Chicago. I grew up on the north side of Chicago and graduated high school in the south suburbs. Grew up in a household, both my mother and my father, who were immigrants to the U.S. in the 80s. I went on to basically be that one daughter, that one girl in the neighborhood that wanted to hang out with all the guys and wanted to compete with everybody. Just super competitive in nature.
Makes sense.
So I did all the sports because of that. And really it was because I wanted to hang out with my older brother, if we're just being honest, but he didn't really want to hang out with me as much. So I had to win over his friends in order to, be a part of the posse. So I had to be super competitive. If my brother ain't want me, I had to beat out the next man.
Right. So you that sibling.
Yeah. So that's well,
no, I'm messing with you.
Kind of, but yeah, no. So, anyway, I graduated high school and was literally unrecruited to University of Houston as a track and field athlete because my first sport was really basketball. I actually envisioned myself being a basketball player.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was a 5'5", 5'6" on my tall leg. And I was a power forward and I was getting boards and I had like a 37-inch vertical or something insanely like what a female would bounce. So I just knew I was going to dunk my senior year in high school.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite happen. So I had to figure out this track thing.
Right. And figured it out. You did because you ended up competing in what year did you go to the Olympics for track?
2012. I went to the 2012 Summer Games. Yep. So after going to University of Houston for track and field. I competed there for 4 years, became All-American my senior year, and went on to run for Nigeria.
Wow.
For 3 years, I was the national champion and the 2-year African champion, and then qualified for the games.
Okay. Yeah, I ran for the YMCA.
Amen. Shout out to the Y.
No, in all seriousness, so let's talk about, and you've told me a little bit about it, and I think it's fascinating.
Yep.
You quit, in your mind, at least you were going to quit sports altogether when you were in college.
Yep.
But you decided to stick to it. Can you tell us, why and what that process was like for you?
So I actually did quit literally every single year of my collegiate track and field career.
Wow.
And the reason why I quit was I had a heart condition where I had surgery for it when I was about 12 years old. And then I had to deal with kind of the remnants of it throughout my high school and collegiate life until my junior year, when at the NCAA regional track meet, I had a episode, which includes my heart rate being at 265, 270 beats a minute.
Wow.
And it was like that for about 45 minutes even after I had completely relaxed, was done running, my heart was just doing its own thing. And so the paramedics wanted to essentially restart my heart. And that's what led to me getting the second heart surgery my senior year in college. And so my freshman year, I wanted to quit. And I did quit actually after my freshman year because I was just like, you're introduced to a new level of training. You're introduced to a new level of like competition, and it hurts. It's different. You know, you're used to what you're used to in high school, and now you're leveled up. And I was already feeling away in my body. I just felt like emotionally I was getting beat down every single day. And so by my sophomore year, I was like, you know what? I could do this thing as a regular student, you know, not necessarily need to compete, especially because I've had a lot of academic scholarships.
Right.
So I was like, you know, let me just do that. But then it was an Olympic year coming up. And so I was like, you know, let me just stick it out. I actually wanted to try out for basketball. For the basketball team.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. That would have been super cool to see. Would you have played for Nigeria or?
Yeah, but I was first trying to get on the U of H basketball team. So I did a lot of like summer. I would do like summer ball with them, you know. So a lot of people didn't know that, you know, I had a lot of friends. I mean, the athletic community at University of Houston, we were really tight, especially during that time. Right. So like we would hang out all the time, and if they was having an open gym, you know, I came and I joined a couple of their open gyms and hooped with them a little bit. What's up.
So we would have had a track athlete, a bobsled athlete, and a basketball player.
Insane.
Wow. Okay, so you talked about, so you could have, I heard you say this and I know it to be true, you could have just done the academia thing and just focused on school because you have 5 degrees, right? Yeah. Like 5 degrees before the age of 30.
Yeah, right? Yeah, by the age of 30. Yep.
And so you're not afraid to, you know, get your head in the books and study and get to where you need to go.
Absolutely.
But, you know, you are a true balance of a student athlete and, you know, just a student academic.
Absolutely.
And you're able to make your way through.
Absolutely.
So by the time you got to heart surgery, you had 2 heart surgeries?
Yes, correct.
I heard you talk about this on your TEDx. By the way, your TEDx talk. You guys should check it out if you can get a chance.
Thank you.
So you got to your second heart surgery, and what happened when you came back from that heart surgery after you know, you said your heart was beating for like 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Straight.
Yeah. It was after that heart surgery, I decided, okay, I'm going to stick out this thing. I'm in my last year. No need to just let go. Let me just finish it out so that when I look back on my life, I can say, you know what? I gave everything that I had and I never quit. Even though I was physically defeated in many spaces. After the surgery, I had already clocked into my mind that I was going to get back out there, start training again, start working out. And 6 weeks after my heart surgery, I qualified for the NCAA meet indoor. And not that I hadn't qualified before.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Had you qualified before?
Yeah, I actually started qualifying as a freshman. I was kind of that diamond in the rough that came out of Chicago that had all this potential, but I didn't spend enough time running. I mean, I didn't really take track seriously until I was going into my senior year in high school.
Okay.
So by the time I had that second heart surgery, I didn't realize how inefficient my body had been at training. And my coach and I, Coach Leroy Burrell, who's the head coach at University of Houston still to this day, you know, we really felt like we had kind of been cheated out of 3 years together because all of a sudden now I'm able to fully utilize the capacity of my strength and of my capabilities.
And this is your junior year.
By this time, this is my senior year. This is right after the surgery. And so then all of a sudden, you know, 4 meets into the season, I'm ranked number 14 in the world. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
This is after coming off a heart surgery.
Exactly.
In your TEDx, you said basically you pretty much died a little bit and then came back to
Yeah, no, the paramedic was trying to tell me, listen, we have had, you know, your heart rate beating for this time for blah, 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 blah. We might need to go ahead and reset it. And I was like, last I checked, resetting the heart doesn't mean, you know, you don't just go in and press a button.
Yeah.
You're not about to lethally inject me or whatever you're going to have to do to stop my heart and then try and poof, 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 poof. We're not doing that.
That's crazy.
We're
but
not doing that.
Luckily you went through with that.
Yep.
And now you came back and it sounded like you were better than ever.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. By this time, mind you, I like I said, I'd already mentally and emotionally been completely depleted from being a track and field athlete to where I knew that after I was done with my collegiate season, I was going to be on to the next chapter. So I had already applied for grad school to go to be in Tennessee. And there was a really like prestigious sports medicine program that I had applied to and was accepted to by like October, November, you know, of my senior year, because, you know, these things you kind of got to start the application process earlier. So I had already made up in my mind before the actual season, track and field season started, that I was moving to Tennessee right after that season. And all of a sudden, here I am cracking all these world times, and me and my coach sitting down and saying like, man, we really, like, my coach was like, you know, I always knew you had the opportunity and the capabilities of being a professional athlete, but now you're realizing it and you're able to see it. And I think we should do it, you know? And so I was offered to a job to stay at University of Houston.
That's amazing.
And they were like, if you find a program that you were going to get into or something similar here, we'll pay for it. And we want to hire you as a coach. So I could keep working with you as an athlete and really let's see what we could do. And I think you can make this next Olympic team. And I was like, yo, first of all, that means 3 more years of training. I had to get my mind right for that because I clearly had clocked out by that point. Right. But then that also meant like, look at God, you know, like this is when you really have faith and when you truly believe in something and when you don't give up on you and you let God take control in that space, you will watch him work.
That's amazing, yo. Like, talk about second chances or, you know, it's just redemption stories to go through a heart surgery. And now you're cracking, like you said, world times and performing better than you ever had in your life. And have a coach believe in you enough and see enough in you to say, yo, I know you had these plans, but we might need to be doing this. Right. And then for you to be able to say, you know what, let me put that on the back burner and go for it. So, you know, it just makes me wonder, like, what, at that point, did you have a purpose in all that you were doing? Or if not, at what point did purpose kind of fuse its way into your story? So you start not only running just to be running, but running, you know, for something bigger than yourself.
You know, I didn't really realize my purpose in that space until I took time to reflect. And I think that sometimes when we're in the space and we're moving and we're moving and we're going, we don't have the opportunity to actually see that we're living in our purpose, right? Or to see what our purpose is supposed to manifest itself to be. And I think somewhere in between the transition between me being a collegiate athlete and me being a professional athlete, I sat still and I looked back and I said, God, why is it that I feel like every single thing that I have to get, I have to work so hard for it? Like, why do I have to, like, I literally felt like nothing could come to me easily. Like, I couldn't get a break. I had to work for everything. And I felt like, man, God, like, what is this? And that's when it revealed to me that in my purpose in life, I'm being used as a tool. I'm being used as a instrument on this earth to help guide people on what true perseverance looks like, on what it means to believe in yourself and to believe in others. And at a certain point, I had to step out of the shell of what I was going through individually to think about the bigger picture, which was I had athletes that admired me and looked at me as their captain and as their coach. And they felt strength in my experiences. And I had to stick with that.
That's a lot, first of all. I mean, no, because obviously purpose is, and I believe purpose is what you do for others, but you still had to take your body through the beating, right? And mentally prepare yourself for years of training. You were in school during this time, right?
Yes.
And coaching.
Yes. So when I was training for the Olympics, I spent the first 2 out of those 3 years coaching and doing my first master's.
Jeez. Okay. So I can barely hold a part-time job and go to school at the same time. No, that's
I wouldn't recommend it it's
not a normal thing.
Pretty as it looks. Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on. So that was the first bout with Nigeria.
Correct. Correct.
And then after the first Olympics that you competed in, what happened there? Because now I know there was a resurgence of this whole thing, but what was that timeline from competing as a track athlete from Nigeria to getting to the point where, like, all of a sudden you're on ice? Like, what's that about?
Man, to be honest, I was asking the exact same question as you to myself, just like a week into it. If I had known that I would be in that space that you just mentioned right now, prior to when I did, I would have been looking at myself like, girl, you crazy. There isn't a single way on this planet you're going to be this person.
That's insane.
And I think what happened was, and I still remember August 6, 2012 was my last race as a track and field athlete. That was the prelims of the Olympic Games. And I was legitimately devastated. I was blessed, honored, and proud and excited about the fact that I finally proved to myself that I could compete with the best of the world no matter what. No matter how the world tried to take me down or break me down, or my body tried to give up on me. My mind, my spirit, and my faith led me to a place that nobody could take away from me.
Right. Wow.
But I had a stress fracture.
I was going to ask that because there's a photo that I always see. It's like you jumping the hurdles. It's a mean photo. I love it. But you had your shin taped up. Yeah.
And crazy enough, that happened to be the only day that I forgot my shin sleeve. I had a sleeve that I wore all year because by March of that year, 2012, I knew that I had a stress fracture. Like there was a break in there somewhere because my training and everything just hurt so badly. And I had to modify the entire year. It was to the extent where, the chiropractor I was working with at the time told me, and the team doctors over at University of Houston were like, if you keep running, you'll probably snap your leg in half. And I was like, at this point, it's March, April of 2012, and I'd have been through this much, getting to this point, just mentally and emotionally, just to even still say I'm running at this point.
Right.
There was no way I was going to just be like, oh, okay, well, if it, I might break it, so let me stop running. I was like, this leg gonna have to crack. This leg's
mentality.
Gonna have to go. It's gonna have to break because there's no way I'm about to stop training for these games. Like I'm in the best shape of my life. Mentally, I'm locked in. Emotionally, I done been through the storm.
Right.
Like we're going.
Do you believe that's what makes like world-class athletes the ability to push through certain things? Because I know obviously like Jordan had the flu game, which we now know it wasn't the flu, but he spit on a pizza or ate a bad pizza. Which is crazy.
Right.
And then Kobe always talked about the ability to play through the pain.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think that. And that's not only something that is unique to athletes, right? I think that that's something that you can apply in just about any field that you're in. There is a particular type of mentality that you have to tap into when you are aiming and shooting to be the greatest level of you.
Wow.
And if you don't know where it is, you have to dedicate time to trying to find it. You have to be intentional about locating that space because it's not going to come out and say, I'm here. You have to go and unlock it.
Right, right.
And I think that speaks to what, I was able to persevere through in my struggles. You mentioned Kobe, you mentioned Jordan. Yeah. Anybody who's had to deal with, if you just look at just about anybody who has a platform or is considered to be successful, they have something. Everybody's story might not be as open, but when you go in, you'll figure out that their life that you see it and that you celebrate now wasn't always that way.
Right.
They went through something.
Had to push through something.
They had to transform.
And to your point, you talk about that space. And it's a mental space. Like you have to lock in. And honestly, I saw something on Instagram the other day. It's like to get where you're going, you have to let go a lot of old things, like, and literally get to this new space, this new idea, this new identity of who you are and who you're going to be.
Absolutely.
And tap into it all the way.
Absolutely. And I think that's what really happened for me. So when I went from track and field, I knew I was done, but I never announced my retirement. Even as a national champion, a continental champion, I never said, you know what, guys, fans, thank you so much for your time. I'm checking out. And to this day, I still don't know why, but I think it's because God had other plans for me. He didn't want me to tap out mentally and check out mentally to the world yet. And I think that's where the birth of this whole bobsled thing came from. Okay, yeah. Now tell us, like this is what I think people want to know. Like, how in the world? First of all, first thing most people think of is Cool Runnings. I knew you was gonna say that. I used to love that movie growing up. Such a good movie. Such a great movie. Jamaican bobsled team. So how do you go from just running to deciding, or even just being associated with a sport that's dominated mostly by, would you say, Europeans or white people? And then on top of which, have you ever even like ice skated in? I mean, like in Africa, there's no ice, right? Like, so how is this even possible? Like to go from being a track runner, which makes sense, right, to bobsled? Honestly, it wasn't that I found the sport. It kind of came upon me. And I say that because in my natural, just supporting my friends type of way, I had some friends that went from track and field into the bobsled world, and they were on the U.S. team kind of training for, the Winter Olympics that were coming up in 2014. Because mind you, I stopped running in 2012.
Right.
So I was actually still coaching at U of H at that time. So from 2012 to 2014, I was only a coach. I wasn't doing any sports. I mean, a couple flag football games here and there, but I was.
What don't you do?
I was, in my recreational, leisure training space. Right. And so, but as I was watching my friends, I'm like, I'm cheering for them. I'm like, this is exciting. I'm always excited to celebrate my friends, especially my women friends who are, going into different ventures and doing things that are usually, just not recognized as womanly sports or womanly activities, and just being proud of them and letting them know. And so in cheering for them, I was going through my own transition mentally and emotionally, where, like I said, I hadn't been running or competing for a while, and I was coaching, and I had such success as a coach getting these athletes to better spaces. But in order for me to get them to where I knew they were capable of going, I needed to go back to school.
Right. And that's when you decided to become a biomechanist.
Yes. And I mean, technically, I was already a biomechanist because I had studied that in my first master's.
Oh, okay.
That was in the physical behavior, motor behavior that I studied. But I knew that what was missing was in the anatomy.
Okay, just for people like myself, what exactly is a biomechanist? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so a biomechanist is a person who merges that happy medium between biology and physical motion, mechanics.
Okay.
And so we're essentially making sure that we study what parts of the biology create physical movement to prevent injuries or to assess injuries that have happened, or just what your body naturally does.
And this is a new field, right?
Yeah, it's rather new. The thing is biomechanists as a practice have been around for ages, right? So basically most of your coaches are biomechanists, specifically in track and field, where we are looking at the fundamental movements that create speed or force or all those things.
Right.
That is what biomechanists do. They look at optimal spaces that you should be in before you are at a risk of injury.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I know some of the more premier athletes have their own personal biomechanists, like LeBron has a biomechanist.
Exactly. And it's becoming a lot more prominent in fields outside of even just sports, because most of your biomechanists were found in labs doing research. They're more of your they look at the forces and angles they put and compute it. They're kind of like engineers in a space. But now you've got shoe companies who are hiring a biomechanist or a biomechanist team that allows them to test their merchandise and their shoes and say okay, if I put this shoe on somebody whose foot caves in as a pronator or caves out as a supinator.
Yeah, we don't know what a pronator or a supinator. You might have to break that down for us.
So basically, your foot, when you're standing, your foot either caves
like
in,
the ergonomics of a shoe.
Exactly, ergonomics. Come on, words. Let me find out.
The YMCA. I got my degree in. No, let me stop. No, so okay, let's just talk about moving from that space. You started to see how you can help athletes.
Exactly.
And where does the chiropractor come in at, right? That's one question. And how did that land you in driving a bobsled? I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to connect the dots.
So basically, what ended up happening is I was going through that transition kind of in my own space at the same time as I was cheering for my friends who were in the sport of bobsled.
Okay.
And so I knew that if I was going to step away from sports as a coach and become a student to help these athletes be the best that they could be, all elite level athletes, professional athletes, I was going to need to create a space of relevance as a Black woman. And I knew that as an Olympian, maybe I might be invited to sit at the table, but no medals, none of that. With world champions or NFL champions, I'm not really going to be able to open my mouth at this table and actually be taken seriously.
Right.
So I said, you know what? maybe I need to get back into a sport or be relevant again in a sport so that I have the more like up-to-date experiences when it comes to being able to help people be their best.
Man.
So that was really what happened mentally for me as I was all of a sudden watching these bobsled races. And then as God would have it, I was like, wait a minute, I think I could do this sport, because I knew I wasn't doing track again. And so that's how I got into the sport. One day I was like, let me just see what it would take to get on a team.
That's crazy. So I'm just curious, putting this out there, and I know you're not done talking, but how do you translate that to other women, people who, if they want to get something done or be respected in a way, like how do you translate that story into just overall advice? Because it seems like you just was like, whatever it takes, no matter the amount of degrees, no matter the amount of adversity, no matter the pain.
Yep. You know what? I didn't stop at the idea. I thought it through. I played out the scenario all the way in my mind. And I think that's the beauty of daydreaming, right? I don't just take my daydreams as experiences that happen right then and there. I take them as experiences that could show foresight.
Like vision?
Vision, exactly. And so what I did was I played it out in my mind. I said, this is an idea that I have. And if I actually did this idea, what would happen? What could happen? And that's how I created plan A, plan B, plan C. And every time I had a plan, there was a brick wall that was standing there. And I thought to myself, I don't hit brick walls, I take detours. So where is my detour going to come on this space? How can I create in this space? And that's what I did. And that's what I advise people to do. You know, like sometimes we get to a certain part in our plan when we're thinking about something. And when it poses as much of a threat, we are like, oh, you know, well, I'll deal with that when I get to it. Or we don't face it. We don't deal with it in that space. Or we just ignore it and play it down like it's not as important as it really will be.
Right.
Instead of just owning it and allowing yourself to be vulnerable in your mind enough to know that you don't have to stop right there. You can get beyond that point as long as you plan it out properly. And that's what I ended up having to do.
Okay. So when we are faced with adversity, and I want to just surmise it for people listening, you need to, first of all, when you have an idea, don't just stop at the idea. I love the fact that you said that. Like, and ideas or visions are not just for you to just relish in that moment and then go on about your life.
Exactly.
A lot of times it's a telltale of what you could be, should be, or should try to do.
Exactly.
And then when you get to adversity, know that there's always a way around it. Because a lot of times, most people will use adversity just to quit, right? Like if there's a brick wall, as you said, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm supposed to turn back around and go home.
Exactly.
And so either find a way around it, find a way over it, or go right through it. real talk. So, okay. And so now you've decided that you want to do bobsled. It makes sense for you. How do you, with Nigeria not having any sort of bobsled, a piece of snow, ice, anything, how does one create a bobsled team? I know it's not as simple as buying a bobsled and showing up. So.
150% not that simple. I actually, when I did my research, I realized obviously there was no African bobsled teams. There was no Nigerian bobsled team. And the first time I looked it up, I actually chuckled to myself. I was like, what if I created one of these things for Nigeria? Like, and then I sat on it for 6 months. I did nothing. I was like, all right, like I'm in the heat of my first my first year of a medical program, which people who know or maybe even don't know, that means no sleep. That means that your best friend is a cadaver, a dead body for, you know, at least 8 months out the year. Like you're not functioning at your full capacity as a social person, a human being.
Right.
You are all books, all education, all everything. And so I was like, I think I'm just doing the most. Let me just sit on it. And when I sat on it, there came a time 6 months later where I was like, something just kept speaking to me about look into this bobsled thing. And so I looked into it again and I started doing research on Team USA and realized that they had a combine, a tryout happening up in Dallas, which is 4.5 hours for me in 6 weeks. And I was like, this might be my only window of opportunity.
Wow.
And so for 6 weeks, I went hard. I just started training. I hadn't done anything but like, again, some like recreational football, flag football here and there. But I started like training, like getting in the weight room. I was looking at some of the numbers I needed to try and be competitive with. And I was like, yo, okay. I did all the research. And
in 6 weeks.
6 weeks, went to a combine, messed around, and got a call back to come out and try out for the team up in Lake Placid. Finished third at their push championships there and ended up with a spot on the team.
On the U.S.
Bobsled team. Yep. And so I was on the U.S. Bobsled team for a year. And I actually competed as a World Cup brakeman, which is the highest level of brakeman that you can be. And I say brakeman as the person who sits in the back of the bobsled.
Okay.
So you have the driver who sits in the front. For women, we specifically mostly do 2-man, where you have a driver and then just one other person in the back, which is a brakeman. If you've watched Cool Runnings, you've seen the movie where they have 4 people.
Right.
And that's true. For men, they do 2-man or 4-man, where they have a driver in the front and then the rest of the 3 in the back are considered brakemen. And so the entry level position, especially on USA team, is a brakeman.
Okay. And
so I came in as a brakeman, and I had a driver. I had a couple drivers that that drove for me that year as well.
Okay. So US bobsled team, where did that transform to all of a sudden you creating a team for an entire continent?
I thought that I was going to do it before I started on the U.S. team. But when I was on the U.S. team, I was like, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. But then I learned that the sport was trying to grow further. They needed more women's teams. Africa as a continent had never been represented. There was just so many different things that my heart went into a tug of war with my brain.
Yep, you couldn't even ignore your destiny at that point.
Exactly. That's when purpose really started speaking even louder. Where as this tool, as this instrument on earth, it may be inconvenient for me. It may not feel right for me, but it serves the greater good. And at this time, you need to step outside of your comfort zone and do what you are called to do. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. I called the U.S. coaches after my first season, and I called them and I said, hey, I'm coming to you right now, like on a mentor-mentee level, not necessarily a coach-athlete, and I just need some advice. This is what my heart has been tugging me for the past 4 or 5 months, and I've been fighting it, and I just can't deny it anymore because I am someone of African descent who has a connection with an African Olympic committee and also this bobsled committee, and the whole continent in 2016 at that point had never been represented, and it bothered me. It bothered me, and I knew that there was something that I could help fix.
You called who would eventually become your competition.
Exactly. And shout out to US Bobsled Team and all their members as well, because it's in their purpose and in their mission as a federation to actually help grow the sport.
Okay.
And so they embodied that.
Nice.
And decided, you know what? And they help other small nations. We're considered small nations that don't have, tracks and things like that. And so they take small nations and they mentor them up.
So what's happening so fast forward. Now you have this pad to start the bobsled team, and I want to make sure our listeners get to really go on the journey with you.
Yeah.
What was that journey like? Because I remember seeing pictures or hearing about it. It was a distant thing for me at the time, but it definitely made its way to our TV screen, our laptops, our iPhones. Can you tell us about that journey, that ride, and was this would you say this was your transformative period, or was it something that happened ahead of that? Just take us on that journey with you. Yeah.
So I think my transformation happened after my first heart surgery. That was when I locked into a totally different mindset of you are who you think you are.
Say that again.
You are who you think you are.
That's enough right there. We can turn off the microphones. You know what I mean? If you don't know it, you are who you think you are.
Exactly.
Otherwise, why are you thinking it?
Hello. Now we're asking the right questions.
So just accept it and then walk in it.
Exactly.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
But when this happened, when I talked to the coaches, I basically came up with a plan, and they helped point me in the right directions with the people on the bobsled side. And I already had the connections with the Nigerian Olympic committee. And so I basically put the two together, and then I thought to myself, all right, I have a year and a half. And we all kind of chuckled about it, this is going to be crazy. And it's borderline impossible, but one of the coaches said, if anybody could do it, you could do it. And so I took that and ran with it. And I was like, all right, so that means I have to start a federation. I have to become a driver at this point. Because remember, I was a brakeman.
Yeah.
But in order to lead a team to the games, I can't bring in new people and put them in the driver's seat when they don't know anything about the sport. And I only had 1 year of experience in the sport. But at this point, I'm the vet. So I had to get to the driver's seat. And then I had to qualify. So mind you, I have to find teammates. As God would have it, I coached a Nigerian athlete at University of Houston, Ngozi Omumere, and that was how I was able to recruit her. She was the first person I recruited to join me.
Nice.
And interestingly, we just had, a relationship where we would meet up, and that's just how I foster relationships with the athletes. Even after they were done competing, once, twice a year, we sit down, have lunch, dinner, catch up. What can I help you with? What are we doing? And it was during that dinner that I told her what I was up to. And she was like, I might be able to do this.
That's
she
awesome.
Could do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that was how I got one. The second one was through a mutual friend who called me, and he's like, one of my younger sisters, she's moving to Houston, Texas. She's just going on a whim. She doesn't have no family or nobody there. But I told her that if there's anybody that she should know in Houston, it's you. And can you please just look after her for me? And I was like, of course. And that was how I got Akwama. When she came in, I was like, hey, I introduced myself. We met, we talked, and I invited her to what was originally listed as a big project to her. And she had already been exposed to the sport because she had a strength coach that did it. So she came on board. So now I'm like, all right, I had to mess around and had a team guy. What did we sign up for? Because I'm still in school at this point.
That's alignment.
And I'm like, God, I said, I'm going to completely surrender to you because I've been fighting this idea for months, and you won't allow me to let it go. My heart is constantly screaming at my brain, and I need you to take the wheel on this because I don't get it. And when I did that, things just started falling in place. The federation was started, and then we needed to raise money to go. And I was like, all right, y'all, the only way that we going to do this is we got to do a GoFundMe campaign, And so I was like, I told my teammates when we finally sat down, we had our first meeting, and I explained to them what was happening. And I invited them to take the journey with me. They obliged, and I was grateful. And I told them, I said, okay, we got to raise money because I was running out of savings.
Right.
I wasn't working because I was a full-time student. So I was like, we got to invite other people on this journey. And that's how we were able to raise the funds to go. And we caught the likes of different sponsors. It was amazing.
Yeah. No. And so how did you, sorry, I'm geeking out right now. How did you manage school, running the bobsled team, practicing, and just all the media and press that was happening? Like what was that like? It just seemed like it would have been a lot for one person.
It was a lot, and I think I'm still unpackaging it to this day, to be honest. And here we are in 2020.
That's crazy.
And mind you, all of this process was happening in 2017. So I spent most of 2017 taking just naps. I did not actually go to sleep, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody because there were a lot of things with that I think, just jacked me up. I lost my whole idea of time. So I basically my circadian rhythms were so off that I didn't even realize that 20.
Yeah, I'm not going to even pretend like I know what that meant. What in the hell?
It's like your circadian, when you go to sleep and wake up, it's basically a reset to your brain that we're in a new day. Okay. We're in a new, you've evolved through a time period.
Gotcha.
But if you never tell your brain that we're in a new day, it just thinks you're in one long day.
Gotcha.
And so I spent most of 2018 feeling like it was, I spent most of 2019 feeling like it was 2018. Like I never really experienced the whole shutting down for a year and a half. To where in 2019, I called everything all the way till December of 2019. I still was writing 2018 because that's what it felt like to me. Again, wouldn't recommend that to most people. Yeah. It was a lot. I'm
trying to keep my circadian rhythms intact.
It was a lot.
As best as possible.
So that was basically how I did because I was dealing with so many different time zones. I had help also. You know what I mean? I had an amazing team of people that started coming on board to help me navigate these things. It became a whole process. The world got behind it, which helped, all the little messages, the little, the reposts and things like that. When I felt like I was drowning or it was over or I was just like, I cannot qualify. those things really helped a lot.
That's beautiful.
It
It was
did.
all over the world, really. And I got invited to an event at U of H, and I think it was y'all's homecoming. And I finally were coming home, and I was like, man. And I was privy to the story, but I didn't really understand the magnitude of what had happened. And then that's when I got to meet you, and I was like, oh man, this powerful. So okay, for people but most especially women, because I know you have your own women empowerment segment of your public speaking.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to get into Dr. Seun Cares too. But for people who are watching, what is your ultimate message to people? Like, what is we talked about your purpose already, but if you had to sum it up, like, what is it that you say to another human being who's trying to go after something or trying to be successful at something?
Embrace fear. When you're going after something, the one thing that your body is designed to do is protect you from what you're not comfortable with. It's to protect you from limits that could potentially lead to damage, could lead to harm, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally. That's the way our body is equipped to handle us, in a way of protection. But in order to do something that may invoke a little bit of fear because it's different, because it's new, because it's elevated, you have to be able to ignore the spaces in your body, in your mind, that try to prevent you from that. You have to be able to suppress it and believe enough in what you're doing, or just enough in yourself to know that you are safe. Because once you can convince yourself that you are safe, you will move forward in conquering whatever it is that you set your mind out to do. But as long as you continue to allow fear to be a limiting factor, you will never be able to move beyond it and achieve your full potential.
Listen, you said a lot. I think, I don't know who said it, but I've heard it before. Fear can have two meanings. Forget everything and run. Like, just fear, I forget everything and run. And then, but you should take it as face everything and rise.
That's it.
And
that's it. That's the one.
So basically, you're saying that when you recognize that fear is it's happening, it's there, and say, okay, cool.
Exactly.
It's not going to stop me. Exactly. You know, and this is a natural human phenomenon or experience. And, you know, I wouldn't be alive if I wasn't experiencing it. You know what I mean? So, so boom, fear is happening. Great. Take that fear and say, I'm going to just set you right here and I'm going to do it anyways.
Exactly. Because failure is an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself. And I say that often because it is truly a mantra that I live by. We are so caught up in what failure looks like and feels like that we don't understand what it does for us, how it elevates our existence. And if you're able to embody fear and the idea of failure as opportunities to reinvent yourself or opportunities to manifest, then you're limitless.
Right.
You don't your potential to achieve is limitless. And if you look at just about anybody you've ever maybe idolized as somebody who's been successful, or, you know, just looked at their achievements, you will notice a level of that in their existence.
Absolutely. I think it's either Denzel Washington and Will Smith always talks about failing early, failing fast, and failing often.
Exactly.
Like, get to it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And then they even go back to, we talked about always looking for the no. Like, you're going to hear a bunch of no's and keep getting excited because you know, yes, it's coming.
Exactly.
If you fail enough, somewhere you're going to hit success. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid of failure, and definitely don't be afraid of fear.
Exactly.
You know, embody it and wear it and then exude it and then conquer it and then go after it anyways. Okay. So, man, thank you. You've given us so much. So you've done all this now. You've competed in the Summer Olympics. You've competed in Winter Olympics. You've gone to school to become a chiropractor and a biomechanist. What are you doing today, specifically with Dr. Seun Cares, but also what is your goal now that you've accomplished so much so early, right? You're still in the early 30s. What is next for you, and what are some of the projects you're working on?
The idea of Dr. Seun Cares, it really is a level of my brand altogether, which is the Dr. Seun brand. Dr. Seun, Dr. Sean, depending on what content you're on, right? And so what Dr. Seun is...
Wait, let's not brush over that. Because I think did I start saying Dr. Seun?
No, it's funny because you started with Dr. Seun and then moved on to Dr. Seun.
This is a great explanation moment. So I'm also first generation Nigerian. And so we read, your name is Sean, but we say it as Seun.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, my name is Seun, but we say it as Sean.
Sorry, yeah. So when I see it, I naturally... Especially because my older brother name is Seun. And so I naturally say Seun, but Dr. Seun for the sake of easeability.
Yeah. And it's funny because I use both now. You know, people are holding me accountable for really going by Seun more, but I've been going by Sean since I was like 4.
Right.
So it's just been, I've always been Sean.
Yeah.
So I'm just, it's interchangeable. Yeah.
My last name is actually Dada, but I just be like Dada.
Right. and honestly, most people that are listening to this right now are like, but you just said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't hear the accents in a lot of
very true.
But yeah, so
yeah, forgive me for I can't help but that's my oldest brother's name.
Yeah, no, that's good. And it's great because I've been saying Dr. Seun a lot more. So it's good. But yeah, the Dr. Seun brand has basically now embodied everything that people know as this like legendary athlete with this scholar, with this person who can be able to show both, and not just as an athlete and academic, but also as a woman. And not just any woman, but a Black woman, not just a Black woman, but a first generation African American, Nigerian American, Muslim American woman. And so what Dr. Seun represents is this pride in representing every single thing that you are. And that is what I have dedicated basically everything that I work on right now to doing. It is to help people live their best quality of life. And it is to allow people to be proud of everything that they are.
That's awesome.
Because it's not often that you'll have the opportunity to say that you're proud of yourself. But you can remind yourself that you are proud every single day by just embodying who you are.
Yeah, don't be embarrassed about it.
Exactly.
We've been talking about this a lot lately. Just like, diversity and inclusion.
Exactly.
Just race relations, racial tolerance, or cultural tolerance,
exactly.
actually. Understanding that, hey, you don't have to change and hide and do
exactly.
what they're doing just to feel like you're going to fit in.
Exactly.
No, like be you.
Exactly.
Because that's going to bring the best outcome for us all.
Everybody. And that's what I've been doing. So I like to be a voice for the unheard, be representation for the underrepresented. That was a lot of what even just that bobsled team was about. Africa needed representation. I needed Black boys and Black girls all over the world to look up and say they see somebody who is leading the way for something bigger than them, and they could do it too. And not to say that there aren't or weren't Black people in the sport of bobsled at the time, but most people, like you mentioned earlier, you were very unaware of that.
Yeah.
And so, just being able to be a voice for the unheard. And that's why I advocate now, especially for women, for girls, for, the special needs populations, for people that are in less fortunate spaces.
For sure.
I'd make sure that people know that those individuals know that they are thought about. People care about them. Somebody out there loves them, cares about them, and understands that they are important and what they feel and what they think matters.
Absolutely.
And so all of the initiatives that I have surround that in some space.
Man, that's beautiful. You are ambassador for the Special Olympics.
Correct.
And then right now you're running a project to feed 1,000 families in Africa, in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, yes. So it's called Dr. Seun Cares COVID-19 Relief Initiative. And another thing that I realized in everything that I've done is that we are so much more powerful when we do things together as a unit, when we're able to speak as one and support one another. And that is what I've done with the Dr. Seun Cares COVID-19 Relief. Between myself and my team, we were like, I want to do something for Nigeria to help them economically in this hard time, because everybody's feeling this pandemic in a different way.
Absolutely.
And I know for a fact that there are so many people in Nigeria who are feeling it in ways way worse than what we are experiencing here. And we're experiencing some pretty rough times. So I said, you know what, let me use that privilege, because we have privilege in that space, to try and help those individuals. But I knew that I'm not gonna be able to touch a fraction of the country, But if I get more of my friends or more people that even just think like me, specifically in the sports diaspora, to join me, now we're talking about touching more lives.
That's awesome.
And then not only that, but it's like giving ourselves power to be bigger.
Yep.
Giving ourselves power to do something much larger than us.
And I saw you have like professional boxers, professional people from NFL, NBA, WNBA.
Correct.
That's super dope.
Yep.
And they all have a connection to Nigeria in some way.
Exactly.
And just to Black people in general.
Exactly. And I think that's where it's going to start. So that's what we're doing. We're really excited about the future of just making sure we get 1,000 families fed.
And that's just a start.
That's just the start.
So, and I have to ask, given all that's going on in the world right now, with just not only the pandemic, but also, race and police brutality, social injustice, it's all coming to the forefront, even though it's been happening. I'm curious to know, how are you feeling right now as a Black woman, African woman, a person of color? Just what's going on in your mind, your heart, in your head?
You know what? I really feel like women in general, especially Black women, are the core of human existence. And I feel like because of that, our role in this space is monumental. It is for us as Black women to not only own who we are as women, as nurturers, as spirit whisperers, but as leaders to help push the initiatives to defund police, to help push our Black men out there who are fighting for just causes in spaces or in rooms that we may not be in. And I also feel like it is important for us to communicate and own this space of change that's happening, so that the next generation can also harbor it and understand it and have it communicated to them in a way that it touches their heart.
So
and their
I
soul.
completely agree with you. I saw recently you took part in Share the Mic Now.
Yep.
Which I encourage everybody to go search the hashtag. Am I saying it right? Share the Mic Now?
Correct.
Go search the hashtag. It was like, it turned out being more than 50 women. 50 powerful Black women took over the social media accounts of 50 powerful white women, just to share in dialogue of what it's like, the Black experience, and how you guys are feeling during this time. I thought that was such a powerful move.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I really, really enjoyed it.
And shout out to the co-founders of that movement. It was, it was one of those things where Lovey Ajayi, who's a New York Times bestselling author, and Bozeman St. John, as two very, very powerful Black women, they reached out and they mentioned that when Black women's voices are amplified, true change actually happens. And Black women's voices are not heard. If we look historically on Black women's voices versus white women's voices, when it shakes, when it moves, when they speak, things happen. Time stops, actions taken, things are being taken seriously. But when a Black woman speaks, even in the same spaces, the exact opposite happens. Slow movement, maybe disregard, maybe not taken seriously, looked at, well, what if, or what are the other opportunities?
Right.
And so, but when you have white women who understand and respect the power of what Black women's voices do, now we're talking about the world respecting that.
Change. I personally, and I think I tweeted this out the other day, I personally believe that Black women are our greatest resource on the planet and for humanity. And I also believe just in the power of women. I liken it to chess. I like to play chess a lot, and the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. Women can move in ways and in spaces that men just can't. And then also women appeal to the humane side of egos, right? Like, I think women truly are the answer, and that's why I love the fact that you guys connected together and say, okay, let's use our voices. Because I think women are the ones, not only are they taking charge, being leaders, dominating in their fields, they also have the voice of their husbands, of their sons, you know what I mean, of their daughters. Exactly. And so I think true change will come about because of women.
100% agree.
Okay.
That was so good. Come on, snaps.
You know what I'm saying? So It's time to get into some parts of the episode that I like to do. Number one, what do I want to do first? The obituary question. What would you like your obituary to read when you're gone?
And I wanted to read that I gave every single ounce of everything I had while I was on this earth. I didn't leave anything to chance. And I did it with love. I did it with honesty. And I did it thinking about ways that it'll continue to be paid forward even when I'm gone. That's what I want people to understand, is that it's not about what we do while we're on this earth. It's about how we leave the earth when we're gone.
The lasting effect of your life.
Exactly.
Okay. That was beautiful. All right. So I'm excited about rapid fire.
Oh, I'm excited too. I was listening to the other rapid fires. And I'm like, all right, let's see what I got. Come on.
This time I got my paper with me. So I can make sure.
Oh man. So I got
some good ones. It's going to be a little different today. So we're going to do the traditional rapid fire.
Okay.
And then I saw some cool questions that I Googled.
Shout out to Google.
Shout out to Google and credit to whoever wrote these questions. And I might get into some of those too. So first, let's go to rapid fire.
Okay.
I say a word. You throw out the first word that comes to your mind.
I hope I don't say anything stupid because I'm real good for that.
I hope you do. So, and then also in this rapid fire, there might be, like I said, a few questions like this or that.
Okay.
All right. So first, let's start with Superwoman.
Me.
Africa.
My mother.
Favorite color.
Blue.
Wisdom or intellect.
Wisdom.
Power or respect.
Respect.
Deaf or blind.
Deaf.
Okay. Would you rather? Wait a minute. Let me find a good one. I want to find a good one. Okay. Would you rather be able to read someone's mind or control their mind?
Control it.
Okay. One more. Would you rather give up social media or eat the same dinner for the rest of your life?
Give up social media.
All right. That was again
choice.
Completely
go.
meaningless and properly maybe worthless exercise, but I love doing it. So the next thing people want to know, if people want to know, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? What do you do when no one knows what you're doing?
Yeah, so I always get criticized because I'm always working on something. I'm always working on something new. I'm always looking for ways to help other people. So I spend a lot of time researching or looking up just ways where I could fill a void. And so I read textbooks, which is really annoying because I am a nerd and that's fine. So my textbook of choice is The Trail Guides to the Human Body, which is the best.
The Trail Guides of what?
It's the Trail Guides to the Human Body. I might be messing that up. I don't know why, but it's a red paperback book.
Wow.
With a spiral, and it has the entire anatomy in there and all the muscles.
You are the first person to come on here and give a textbook.
I love it. It's the best book ever.
It's befitting because you have 5 degrees and you're also a nerd, as we now know.
I am a nerd.
Okay. Any last minute parting advice? Or, one way I always like to ask, can you recall some great advice that was given to you, or the greatest piece of advice that was ever given to you that you would like to leave with the people?
Yeah, I think that my coach, my head coach, Leroy Burrell at University of Houston, he told me that if you can't feel it, you can't fix it. And what we were talking about.
Say that one more time.
If you can't feel it, you can't fix it.
Okay.
And what we were talking about was me trying to learn how to hurdle over an obstacle going full speed. But the way that I internalized it was how I hurdle in life. And a lot of times somebody can tell us, do this, do that, do this, do that, because they see it, they know it. But if you don't feel what they're saying, you can't fix it. You can't adjust it. You can't make the change. And so I started to learn that in life. And I use that motto for my other mantra, which is put yourself in a position where you cannot be denied. But if you cannot feel it, you cannot fix it. And that's it.
Dr. Seun. Yo,
Dr. Seun,
Dr.
Mariam.
Seun. I'm surprised you didn't bust into accent.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do it? Hey, my people there, are you listening? I am a Niger girl, very proper, but I can just do you people anyhow. No,
I've seen you do it quite a few times. It's always funny. I'm always dying laughing. Okay.
I'm actually a useless somebody.
So, Dr. Seun, I thank you. I appreciate you for taking the time out to come on the show. You're doing some amazing things.
Thank you so much.
How can people follow you if they want to donate to your causes? How can they donate? What are some things people should look out for dealing with you?
No, absolutely. I think people should just subscribe. You can do that at my page, www.seunadigun.com. That's www.seunadigun.com. And that is, I know, I'm corny. We already know this.
Listen,
so stop.
I'll just let you have your moment.
And then I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Seun, SEUN _MSAMAZING. Seun _Miss Amazing. That's where you can find me.
That's awesome. And the website that you gave out, that's how they can donate to the...
Exactly. You can donate through there. Subscribe for more updates, because we'll be sending out all kinds of updates. Some of the amazing athletes that are joining this journey with me to feed 1,000 people, we'll be listing them there. We'll be giving them updates and other projects that I'm going to be into
for sure.
Very, very soon in the future.
I'll say it right now. Do yourself a favor. Get familiar with Dr. Seun. She's doing amazing things. She's an amazing woman, and she's just a powerful person. If you haven't, check out her TEDx talk on YouTube. And man, thank you so much, Dr. Seun.
Thank you for having me. This was amazing. It's always good catching up, chatting with you. Go ahead.
You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead and chop knuckle.
Okay. Y'all got to go on YouTube to see that one. All right. Until next time, this has been episode 5 of the Transformation Chamber. Thank you guys for tuning in. Peace. Thanks again for tuning in to the Transformation Chamber. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. To find out more about Dr. Seun, follow her on IG at Seun _Miss Amazing, or visit her website at www.seunadigun.com. To find out more about the Transformation Chamber, follow me at Joshua T. Dada, or visit my website at joshuatdada.com. Until next time.